So there's definitely no chance, as far as I perceive it to be, for there to be a human organ inside of this. And as I kind of unfold this, uh-oh. So some of you may have already seen a handful of videos on the channel where I was donning a Sam Raimi suit. And it's a Zentai suit. It was a mere 50 bucks on Amazon, and at the time I was genuinely surprised by how well that suit held up. Despite the printing kind of having like that faux 3D thing, I don't know, I just felt like the quality was actually holding up on its own. And for a good while it was, but it was finally sometime this year where I started to feel like there was a bit of wear and tear happening. A couple of holes actually managed to pop in through one of my gloves. I believe it was the red glove. And then, like I said, some of the quality and even the color was starting to fade a little bit. I felt like I was overdue for a suit, for a brand new Spider-Man suit. And seeing as this year we finally had the release of the hotly anticipated Marvel Spider-Man 2, well, it looks like I was in the market for a very specific design to now add to my overall wardrobe of both Batman and Spider-Man attire. And thanks to the folks over at printcostume.com, which, full transparency, did in fact sponsor out this particular item out for me to cover in a video/review. So full disclaimer right there, take it how you will. But they did in fact send this over to now cover in this video that does in fact meet that specific desire, that specific thing that I was kind of looking for. So we'll check it out. Now, none of the packaging, whether it be this styrofoam container or even the FedEx envelope that it came in, said anything or had any kind of notes or instructions requiring this to be refrigerated. So there's definitely no chance, as far as I perceive it to be, for there to be a human organ inside of this. So let's go ahead and cut this open. In all honesty though, I really do dig how this was kind of packaged. It wasn't just like a standard, I'll just cut one side that we can kind of open like a lid. But I really do appreciate how it's a styrofoam package with a proper lid, as opposed to just being like an envelope or simply just being like a, you know, one of those like envelopes that have the bubble packaging inside, but it just kind of barely holds it, or even just a box with just a simple padding inside. I think the styrofoam does a slightly better job of holding things together. You can see that right there. That's pretty cool. All right, so there is a little bit of a bulge happening right here on the side, but there's an obviously good reason for that happening. Right off the bat, though, you do get the magnetic lenses right there. You can kind of see exactly where we're going. And as, of course, as I often tend to do with some of these unboxings of specific suits and whatnot, I will be doing a much better breakdown of exactly what comes inside of here once we finally get the first impressions out of the way. But we got the magnetic lenses. Then we get, also in the FedEx packaging, what I believe should be a brand new face shell. Let's get the first impressions out of the way as we kind of remove this. And thank God my address is not on that one. It's just a mere thing to kind of wrap it in and keep it tight. There's the face shell. Feels pretty durable. Looks like I can breathe. Will it pass the glasses test? We shall see, because it's definitely one of the things that I wanted to do. It also comes with an extra magnet. I'll tell you right now, kind of wish that there would have been some additional magnets. Just one magnet on top of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that come on each lens, I think should have required just a little bit more. But for posterity, let's go ahead and add those on right there just to kind of give it a, and they do kind of wrap rather nicely, pretty generously. Okay. So there you have the glasses right there, or the lenses rather, on the face mask itself. We'll set that off to the side because to me, I think the main attraction is going to be, and there's some weight. There's some weight and some bulging happening, not just with the packaging, but also with the item itself. Now that we can finally set that to the side, we have this beautifully wrapped inside of this gloss. Ooh, okay, that's kind of neat. My name is actually on there. That's kind of nice. I appreciate that print costume, really, really do. And I can tell where the majority of this weight is going into. And as I kind of unfold this, oh wait, is that just a simple, all of my opinions, despite a sponsoring of the suit, I will have opinions because I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna, hold back. So the suit itself does come with the Kung Fu shoes, and that's where, like I said, the majority of the weight kind of comes in, and it feels like so far they're pretty sturdy. Will they pass any extra comfort testing? We shall see. But as far as the material that I'm seeing right now for the suit itself is actually pretty good. And overall, yeah, I really can't knock it too much until we get to a specific area here that I will have to comment on, to be quite frank. But if you couldn't already tell, this is, if I can kind of pull it out a little bit, it is the PS5 Marvel's Spider-Man suits. So it is the one with the white logo, but specifically it is the PS5 version. You can see right here from the trimming that we have the little designs and little variances happening within the much more saturated color look, unlike the muted orangey one from the original 1.0 advanced suit from the 2018 Spider-Man game. You have the much more vibrant red and blue, the much more vibrant white spider symbol, and then overall, like I said, the little changes and variances they made to some of the things around, like the waist, the belt that kind of connects to the red piece in the front chest, the gauntlets, or whatever you have going on right here with the white parts on top of the gloves. Those are a little bit changed up, as well as, like I said, the overall pattern kind of deviating a little bit away from the tracksuit kind of look on over to exactly the much more streamlined classic Spidey look, while at the same time retaining an awful lot of those things that Insomniac decided to put on their suit. And overall, the material as well as the printing of the actual webbing, red and blue patterns is cool. And I just noticed as I unfolded the costume, it does come with a detached mask. At the very last second, I asked for detached. I was going to attach it just to kind of give it that extra sense of realism, because some other folks do prefer to have the attached mask that kind of just dangles here on the side if it's wearing a face shell. And so I was going to go for that added realism. That way this whole thing is kind of right here together. But sometimes I do want to be able to wear the suit without the mask and have a much more cleaner look. I've seen some other folks kind of tuck it in here, but then it kind of just bulges up and kind of gives you like a secondary Adam's apple. I really don't personally like that. So I went for the detached mask. Looking at the lenses and the face shell, let's just say that maybe it was actually a blessing in disguise that I decided to go for the detached mask. We shall see exactly how it compares once I'm actually wearing the suit, wearing the mask, the face shell, and how it compares to something else that I also have on hand. Without further ado, there's some other little features on this specific mask that I do need to address, but I wouldn't be able to do until I actually put it on. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, so this is the full ensemble. As I excruciatingly move this mic. Here we go. This is the full-blown print costume PlayStation 5 suit in its entirety. And I can honestly say it is definitely better than what I was actually thinking or perceiving during that unboxing process. Now, the actual putting on process is a whole different beast, but to do that, I definitely have to take off what is probably going to be the biggest elephant in the room to cover during this review, which is going to be the mask, as well as the face shell and the adjacent lenses that you can definitely see right here, because it's definitely expressing a little bit of the frownage that's going on right here. Now, I'll tell you this much before I do take this thing off and put my glasses on, so I can kind of do this a little bit more appropriately. I actually, this is gonna sound not only a little strange, but potentially masochistic. I actually feel a little snug and pretty comfortable within the face shell itself as I'm wearing it right now. Maybe it's because of the sizing on my bulbous head or what, but there's just something about the way that it's able to flush with my face. Now, that comes with a little caveat, an asterisk, if you will. And that's going to be, I'm not wearing my glasses. Which means that, yes, this thing does not pass the glasses test, unfortunately. I tried it already a couple of times, and it's just either a huge pain, quite figuratively and literally in the middle of my face, or the lenses are fogging up or doing anything like that. Like, it's completely strained, or these things came at the risk of breaking.
So, to further illustrate exactly what I'm talking about, let me take off the face shell and the mask itself, which to do so, you just pull back on the zipper right here, which is something that I customized and included in the process by adding this zipper here towards the back. Now, before I go further on either the face mask, which is already kind of falling apart here, or the suit itself, full transparency, like I mentioned before, not only is the suit sponsored by Print Costume, they provided the suit here for me to cover in the video, but also if you are curious as far as measurements, specific features, specific things that I toggled on, basically everything that I asked for as far as this suit, as far as the detailing, whether it be the screen printed emblems that are actually screen printed so you can actually feel the emblems on both the front and the back, the white spiders, as well as of course the feature or the added cost of actually having a face shell and a detached mask, along with pretty much every single zipper that I decided to throw onto this suit, from the wrist zippers to the U-shaped zipper to the back zipper that there's a slight kind of vertical zipper, very straight line zipper here from the base of my head towards kind of like I want to say about 2 or 3 discs down my spine, but it kind of stops right before it gets to the spider symbol. Apart from all of that, that's pretty much everything that is included, and the very prestigious Kung Fu shoes. These do come with the Kung Fu shoes as mentioned in that unboxing video. So all of those different features, they do kind of raise the price a little bit. It starts at like about 65 bucks, and then every time that you add a new form of zipper or luxury like the Kung Fu shoes, face shell, lenses, etc., it does raise the price. So all of those specifications, as well as my specific height, weight, stitchings, because this was custom and tailor made for me as far as the stitching and everything, is going to be included either on screen right now and you can pause the video, or I'm going to link it somehow. I'll find some kind of method to link it either in the description or in a pinned comment. That way you guys can browse that and kind of use it as reference should you choose to want to get your suit, and that way you can kind of use me as your model, I guess. And quite honestly, I'm definitely going to be keeping everything assembled like this, because right out of the package, the lenses, the mask, and the face shell are completely separated. You need to assemble all this together, and it's probably going to be con number 1, the actual process of getting this thing working and situated into itself like so. At the very, very least, it's kind of a pain. And honestly, it took me about 15-20 minutes. Full transparency. This is not necessarily the most convenient form of putting things together as far as face shells. That's something that I definitely wanted to get out of the way. Now, the actual material and the webbing that behind the mask itself and the pattern is actually pretty nice, which I guess serves as a really great segue to the rest of the suit, which you can see right here in terms of vibrancy, in terms of color. I pulled it out of the box and I knew for a fact that the colors were not going to be 100% a problem, especially the red and the blue. I feel like, honestly, the red and the blue, especially for my physique, is looking and popping quite adequate and well, and also accurate to the PS5 version of the Spider-Man 2 suit, which of course is going to be much more saturated on the red and not leaning towards any of that red orangey kind of bright orange kind of look that they had going for the Advanced Suit 1.0 in the original game. This is the 2.0, so the blue is going to be bluer, the red is going to be redder, but it's also going to be it's going to have a much less tracksuit aesthetic. So for the most part, you can see right here that an awful lot of the little details as far as the lining, the pattern on the red and the blue, and then of course the little linings that kind of give it that somewhat advanced kind of look, while at the same time pulling back on the tracksuitness and making it look more like a superhero suit is still intact. The only areas that I do feel is a little questionable, and I have yet to decide if it's either the fabric or simply just the design of the print that's lifted directly from the store, which you have a feature on Print Costume to be able to click on if you want to actually add for additional $10, add the suit, or at least add the print file. That way they take that specific print file. And I guess by that vocation, I should mention exactly how the suit exactly feels, which you could see I kind of had a specific look on my face when I was unboxing it from the styrofoam package. Well, I'm happy to report that after wearing it for, I was about to say 24 hours, but it wasn't 24 hours consistently. I took it off, obviously I went to bed, I woke up, kind of felt it in my hand, kind of dealt with some things here as far as, getting the methodology or kind of training myself on how to put it on either by myself or with the help of my girlfriend on one occasion. And then also figuring out how to assemble all this right here. I am definitely warmed up to the suit overall.
but not without its slight little caveats that you definitely need to know ahead of time. One of which has to be the thing that really scared me at the beginning during the unboxing, which is going to be those little pieces of reflective sheen or plastic that were coming off the screen printed emblems. I was looking at those and thinking to myself, is this a defect? Did something get ruined during delivery? I got in contact with Print Costume, and it turns out that those are actually supposed to come off. Thank God. I thought to myself, is this part of the design? If so, this thing was glued on terribly. And the reason for why I was at one point thinking to myself that was the case was because it added a reflective sheen to the emblems themselves. And to be honest, I feel like that looked more legit and almost accurate to Peter's suit in both 2018 Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 from this past year. And so it looked kind of realistic to me. So to have it kind of peeling in the sides and certain parts of the legs, especially in the back one was the worst one. I thought to myself, oh man, this thing got botched. But it turns out that you're actually supposed to remove that. Once I donned the suit for the very first time, it then became a little clear that you are supposed to remove those, because when I looked at it, like looking at myself in the mirror and kind of giving myself a full-blown kind of look, a very stark look at exactly how the suit translate from far away instead of like the minute details, I noticed that the symbols look kind of yellowy, but upon removing the film, it turns out that's actually supposed to be just a protective covering. So all it is to say is that that's actually normal. So if you do in fact get screen printed emblems, another not just this suit but any Spider-Man suit, you're supposed to take those off. So fret not if it comes a little detached out of the package. So once you remove it, this is pretty much how exactly the screen printed emblems on the front and on the back are supposed to look like. They have a much more matted kind of surface to them, but at least they pop more, they stand out more. And to be honest, the more I kind of looked at them, the more I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm kind of digging the way that the emblems feel. I personally would have preferred if the back emblem was just a little bit on the bigger side. Granted, I don't know if maybe that's just a comment on my physique, or maybe it was a little shrunken down during the printing process. But the front one is the one that I personally feel feels rather immaculate. Now, apart from that, the way that the colors pop are on point. There is a little bit of room for improvement because, after all, I ordered the super lycra version of the suit, and even though it's very, very comfortable, very tight, while at the same time flexible enough to at least kind of create enough slack so I don't feel like I'm like suffocating inside this thing and have restricted movement. Like I mentioned before, I threw in my own specific stitchings and details as far as measurements for the chest, the width, and even then, I would probably say it's tightest in the upper body. It's not so much tight in the bottom part of my body in terms of the legs and even the crotch area. It doesn't rise up in the crotch a little bit too, like unfortunately Toby did in Spider-Man 2. But now in hindsight, you probably want it that way because, yeah, there's that accurate part of me that kind of wishes that the back legs were a little tighter, because when I do kind of stand up, this kind of dangles and flabs just a tiny bit. But if it wasn't for that extra kind of room, I would have an even worse time putting on the Kung Fu shoes. As accurate and as comfortable as these shoes really are, and I know that in the long term, these things are going to benefit, especially should I wear these to like parties for like Halloween, get-togethers, but even more so, conventions, because me and the girlfriend do in fact have tickets for San Diego Comic-Con 2024. One of those days, I'm going to be wearing this, and these are going to be a godsend when walking the show floor. However, putting them on is a whole nother beast entirely because they're practically shoes. They have this thing that inside, it's difficult to explain, but you have to lift it up. They're almost like ballet shoes, and you really do have to. It's not your foot don't just rest on top of these soles. It's an actual shoe inside, and as such, you have to slip your foot inside into kind of like this thing that holds it all together. And while wearing either leggings or thermals, it's a bitch. To the point where if you have the sole intent of wearing thermals as your pants, because right now I'm not wearing anything, baby. I'm just wearing my underwear. And frankly, that's the way to go if you want a very smooth time as far as putting the legs on. Thankfully, because of this extra slack, that I was able to kind of, especially being a bony fella, I'm able to put my hands inside and pull on the heels and on the tongue, so to speak, of the shoe to get my foot in just right. If I was wearing thermals, I tried it already with like thermals or Under Armour leggings, and each time it's a pain to the point where I partially regret not getting ankle zippers. There is a function, or there's an extra feature to be able to toggle on ankle zippers if you so choose. It's like an additional $5. So if you're planning on wearing like thermals or leggings underneath, add the ankle zippers, because then you can go right here to the source, access those shoes, pull them, and have a breezier time. Yeah, you're gonna have the little zipper dangling just like you kind of do here with the wrist zippers, which I included, but at least it's gonna make the whole process a whole lot more convenient. Otherwise, if you're like me, you're probably gonna have to forego any of those undergarments for the bottoms, especially as things get kind of colder in the year. You're just gonna have to brave that. And speaking of those wrist zippers, the reason why I added them is like I said, this might ruin the immersion a little bit for some folks, but I'm constantly on my phone, especially being a content creator. If I get an email for a collaboration or something that's important and pertinent to my job, I want to be able to access my phone. All right, it's kind of part of my job, kind of my whole well-being. So pulling on this thing, being able to tug on the arms, which like I said, they do kind of bleed a little bit and have that extra slack that don't feel as skin tight, but at the same time, one would argue that you would want that, because then you could kind of stretch this, make the process of pulling your hand out from the wrist zipper a lot more accessible and easier, and get to your phone a lot quicker, or certain touch devices. And on that front, it's because of these zippers that make putting on the entire suit, the process a whole lot easier, because I opted for the U shape, which of course blends in better with a spider suit just overall, not just with the Insomniac one, but the Raimi one, all of those others. U shape is the way to go. Just do be careful as far as pulling on your arms or really getting into the suit. To me, I'm still kind of trying to figuring out the science as far as how to properly put on the suit, but I would say put on both arms, and if you got the wrist zippers, put your hands through the zippers, not into the gloves yet. That way these things can kind of recede back, and definitely utilize as much real estate of the suit as possible, because as soon as you're done putting on the legs, putting on the upper torso, it is going to be a tighter fit, at least it was for me. And as such, I would say put these on, but then put your hands through here to create this extra slack on the shoulders and on the overall kind of shoulder and torso area to pull on the U shape and get your head through the neck piece. Because already once, I kind of crunched myself a little bit too much to try to put my head through the hole, while at the same time not putting my hands through the wrist and putting them through here instead. And I gave myself a stomach cramp, a physical surface stomach cramp on my abdominal here, to the point where one of my, this is going to sound gross and graphic, but one of my abdominal muscles legitimately started bulging because it was cramping. I was like, yo, what is going on? Surprisingly, not too painful, but it felt like a muscular cramp on the surface of my muscle, and thankfully it went down over time. But I was like, yeah, I'm not doing that again, and I warned you not to do it either. Realized I don't know why I haven't put on my glasses this whole time. So either be extra careful or simply just ask somebody for help. Spider-Man always needs help, whether it be from Miles, from MJ, and for myself, from my girlfriend. So once getting into that suit and getting to the process of the U zipper and then zipping up the bottom right here, everything just kind of flushed into place, and I'm like, you know what? Overall, I am happy. I would say, like I said, the only areas of improvement would just have to be the actual convenience of trying to put on these shoes, in terms of, not knowing ahead of time that I probably would have opted for the ankles if the shoes were going to look like that. I wish that maybe there would have been some form of graphic online to show exactly how the Kung Fu shoes look like inside. And then the other one that I still looked at and went, yeah, that could have been a little bit better. And I can't tell if it's the design online by, I think, Gunhead or Gunhead, something like that. Like I said, I'll link it all in the description, but their design on the image, the graphic design, the 3D graphic design, looked pretty much very clean as far as the color palette is concerned. Translating it over to a suit, the blue and the red look great. The white on the symbols, on the emblems, look great. The white on the gauntlets, from far away, looks pretty decent, but once you get a little close, you'll notice that you have like these little blackish kind of pattern designs on the edges here. I don't know if they're put there intentionally to kind of give it like a three-dimensional look. Maybe it falls down to preference, but I don't like it when they try to create the illusion of a three-dimensional look. I'd rather just have it be a flat white when it comes to a suit right here, because unless it's going to be a physical piece like it is on Peter's legitimate suit, I kind of don't want this. So, like I said, from far away, it does the job, but once you get a little up close and personal, you can see a little bit of that blackish kind of shading happening on the edges. And a little bit of that is also happening on some of the white parts on the shoe as well. You can maybe see it a little bit right there. If you're able to get past the majority of that though, and also even though that this is the super lycra material, ever so often, and as form-fitting as it is, especially because of the specific stitching measurements that I provided to Print Costume, I feel like if you don't provide those specific measurements, you might come across some stretching in your suit, and stretching it a little bit more past its prime, you could argue, starts to show a little bit of the white inside. It is like a red dye or red and blue dye printed on the suit. I mean, a good example would have to be the mask. You can see right there that it's actually white underneath, and they simply just dyed the red and the blue onto the material itself, and that goes for the same of the suit. Now, like I said, the reason why it doesn't look all too bad is because I provided the measurement so that whenever I do move my body, you can see right there, you don't really see too much of that happening, but if you do push it past its limits a little bit, like you could kind of see it just a tinge right here, a little bit of the white happening. And a couple of times during either the suit up process or me stretching the arms like this, you can maybe hear a little creak here and there, so I would just offer to be careful. So I would just advise to be careful, especially if you're going for a realistic looking suit, because that thing is going to have to be skin tight. So it's all about preparedness. It's all about knowing if you're going to want to favor slack so you could be comfortable, or realism. And I feel like I got, for the most part, lucky on reaching a happy medium for the suit. The mask, on the other hand, yeah, I gotta be brutally honest, this ain't it, Chief. A couple nights later, when my girlfriend came over and I showed her this, and we were kind of just messing around with it, just, you know, to prepare for Comic-Con, you know, she's gonna want to get her own suit as well. But in the process of it all, she was getting bugged by the fact that while you assemble the face shell, the mask onto it itself, and then the magnetic lenses, which are made out of rubber and kind of like this plastic film for the inside portion right here that is translucent, and it does a decent job of being able to see through. The magnets themselves don't really attach too greatly to the mask once you put, or to the face shell rather, once you put the mask on top of them. And even when they do, a little bit of the seam of the hole itself starts to bleed on top of the lens. So it kind of just ruins the illusion, and I feel like I'm just a few mismeasurements away from looking like Spooderman. Combined with the fact that the expression on the lenses, despite being, I guess, somewhat accurate lenses, that kind of looks like the PS5, PS4 Spidey, but the expression on them, it just looks like I'm pissed off all the time. Look at this. Which is a shame, because the actual material of the mask, screw it, I'm just gonna take it off. I'll just have to struggle for the sake of the B-roll. The actual material of the face shell itself is actually pretty decent. It's comfortable, at least fleshing to my face, but the trade-off would have to be that I can't wear the glasses like I mentioned before, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to hold it up against your face except for the mask itself, which is made out of the same material as a suit, so therefore it kind of feels pretty flush up against the skin, comfortable, doesn't itch, doesn't smell too badly, but I feel like the holes were just, as soon as, like I said, I showed my girlfriend just the mask by itself, she kind of looked at it and said, why do I get the feeling that's not going to work? So you can imagine I was really glad that I opted for a detached mask instead of an attached function, because there is a feature to be able to ask them to attach the mask to go for that seamless, realistic look. Personally, never liked that. Even though it looks great in the movies, it always kind of bothered me with the continuity errors, especially with the Tobey movies, where in one scene it looks like it's all one piece and perfectly blended, very synthetic, very seamless, and then they cut and it shows Tobey pulling off the mask, but if you go frame by frame, that mask looks just like terrible and wobbly in that first frame when he's first taking it off. And even as a kid, 11-year-old kid watching that back in 2002, I was bothered by that. I'm like, that doesn't look like that was real. Like, why? That always bothered me. It always bugged my OCD. So it's fine to have a detached mask, because at least I'm able to mix and match. Because attached, sure, you got the believability, the realism, but you're kind of stuck with that thing unless you manage to kind of like tuck it in front of you and you're not bothered by that. I'm going to be bothered by that. So not only was I very, very thankful that I went for a detached function, because knowing that the face shell and the mask itself was going to end up looking like this, but it also made me happy that earlier in the year, if you guys have been keeping up with the channel, I commissioned someone on Etsy to create me a slightly bit more accurate PS5 Spider-Man mask. And you could see right here the difference. I can't really speak for the facial. I feel like they're kind of on par as far as comfortability. Maybe this one feels a little bit more durable and rigid, but taking a very close look at those eye lenses, you can see the huge difference as far as accuracy. Now, admittedly, the red, as far as the hue, is I think a little bit more muted. This one's a little bit more reflective and brighter, and it definitely has that slight little, I don't want to say honeycomb, but that slight texturing pattern happening in the inside parts of the webbing to match that of the rest of the suit. This one doesn't have any of that. It just has the very basic kind of black webbing stitched here towards the center, as well as, like I said, a much more muted hue. But in terms of the material, it's pretty much on par with that of this mask. But to me, what makes this and breaks this is those lenses. Just how much more accurate those lenses really are and how strong the magnets are. Again, the caveat I mentioned in that video is that the mask itself is already attached to the face shell, so you can't really mix and swap it. But now knowing exactly what I'm dealing with as far as this face shell, I'm like, you know what? That's fine. I'll deal with it. So now let's take a look exactly how this looks with the Etsy face shell that I commissioned. And as I mentioned in that prior video, check it out. Glasses wear, keeping the glasses on. Let's take a look. Oh yeah, baby. Look at that. Look at that. Now, there is a little bit of a paint smell to this face shell. I will admit that. But once you're able to get the zipper closed in on you, you got, okay, one lens did in fact pop off just now. Only because the glasses are pressing just a teensy-winsy bit. But not as bad as they were with this guy. Not as bad. And you can see right there. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Just look at how much of a difference that provides. Now, one thing I will give the suit is that I really dig the neck piece, or rather the neck area of the suit, to be able to cover up pretty much all of this and have it flush. So the funny thing is that the stretching on the seam for the neck piece is actually tight enough, but not too tight to, cause any asphyxiation, but rather hold either the mask for the one that it was included or the Etsy one that I commissioned in place. And sure, like I mentioned before, the red may not match 100%, but from a distance, just look at this. Just look at this. This I'm happy with. Sure, the lenses are kind of bobbing and weaving a little bit because of, like I said, I'm wearing my glasses underneath. So something that I'm either going to have to look into laser eye surgery or simply just having to deal with by not wearing any glasses. But it's technically passing the test a whole lot better than this was. It was practically impossible to wear the glasses with this thing. With here, like I said, the compromise would have to be that the lenses are kind of being bulged just ever so slightly, but outside of that, you trade in a much more accurate look. Sure, it's not as tight as a face shell can really be because you still have some areas right here protruding, but trust me, in the real world, you really do want that extra space so that your head can breathe, your hair can be in place, because it's never going to look 100% unless you have like a Hollywood team behind you. But with this, I would say my first day at Comic-Con is probably secure. As is practically any skit that I may be bringing to the channel, whether it be in the form of a video essay or some intro or anything like this is probably going to be my default suit until further notice, as well as the Etsy mask being my default mask to pair it up. Because as you can see right here, this is the way to go. So if you are in the market for a PlayStation 5 Spider-Man 2 suit, I'm not going to say that the print costume is not one to avoid. It's still good. I would just say that the caveat would have to be order just the suit by itself. Don't get the face shell, don't get the mask, because I feel like they still need to do a little bit of improvement as far as the combination of all these elements. I feel like separate they're okay, but maybe they have to work a little bit on the lenses. I feel like I've seen these lenses on their site for a number of months, almost years, and they desperately need a little bit of an upgrade on that, as well as the face shell. The mask itself, like I said, is not inherently bad. I just dropped the face shell. But there's just so many different things happening here that they need to work on. The suit itself, on the other hand, I am pleasantly surprised. It definitely warmed up to me. Feel incredibly comfortable, and the Kung Fu shoes are the way to go. Just make sure you get those ankle zippers if you're planning on wearing any kind of thermals, because there's going to be real estate covered up by that. So that could become a nuisance, and therefore you want to make things a little bit easier on you. So my formula would have to be get the print custom suit, don't get the mask, and commission someone on Etsy for something a bit more realistic. Sure, it may be 3D printed, but you can see right here that the illusion is very, very, very strong, and I'm ultimately satisfied with the way that I was able to piece together my suit and become Insomniac's PS5 Spider-Man. So now, guys, I need to know, what do you guys think of the suit? Does it look realistic? Does it look favorable? Does it look good for what exactly it is going for on Print Costume's site? Do you think that this is the way to go of kind of mixing and matching masks or suits? Or do you think that it should kind of stay cohesive? Or do you think that this is just too much and you should just go to Party City? But let me know you guys' thoughts down in the comment section. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of my brand new PlayStation 5 suit. And if you guys are interested in your very own, there is going to be a link to Print Costume in the description. That way you guys can check it out. And along with a link to my specific setup in case you guys want to use it as reference, like I mentioned before. Otherwise, guys, I appreciate you for watching. And until next time, stay humble.